On July 10th, 2018, newlyweds Kielyanne and Ruben Love were celebrating their third wedding anniversary with a surprise drive to the Observatory at Griffith Park. On summer vacation from classes at Auburn University and a teaching job, they arrived and parked just as the doors opened at noon. They had enough time to explore the exhibits on the first floor and to enjoy most of the Planetarium show when suddenly the lights came on and the show stopped. It was a wildfire that eventually burned roughly 25 acres and 5 automobiles. USEDmedia asked Kielyanne how it felt to be caught in the middle of a California wildfire.
Auburn, Alabama.
In your profession?
I am an English teacher, 9th grade, and my husband is in business analytics at Auburn University. It was actually for our 3rd year anniversary. It was a surprise for him. He didn't know we were going. He just knew we were going somewhere because he's in love with space. And so we headed up, opened at 12. We headed up in the afternoon, or late morning. And went in. We got to see the middle floor and part of the bottom floor when we went into the planetarium for the centered one. I don't remember the name of the show, and that's where it got interrupted. Towards the end of the show, they asked us to evacuate, and we walked outside, and there was the fire, like, right there.
Surprise.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an exciting anniversary date, that's for sure.
So you guys went up there at what time?
We got there just before it opened at 12, so we were up there about 11:30, 11:45. So walked through the doors right when it opened. We wanted to spend the whole day there, get lunch there, all that stuff, which obviously didn't play out, but...
What time did the fire start? Or rather, what time were you aware of the fire was so bad?
The planetarium show is at 1:45, and it's about 30 minutes long. And we were at the very end of the show when they cut it off. So I guess early 2 o'clock hour, mid 2 o'clock hour. I didn't really check the time because they were evacuating. They were just like, come on, walk down the hill. We had to walk down to the Greek theater. I guess I probably texted and called people, and there's probably timestamps on that, but they got the fire out in about 3.5 hours. So thank God.
How long were you in there? What was it like inside it with other gear?
We weren't in the theater itself. They had us walk down to that area. They herded us all down that road. The Greek theater did open up its gates so we could access the bathrooms. Somebody drove up 2 big things of ice water for us. The hospitality was great because they were having a show that night, so they had a bunch of staff on hand. And the staff was there making sure everybody was taken care of, trying to answer questions as best they could. A lot of tourists asking, it was kind of comedic. Tourists were asking, like, oh, when's the fire gonna be done? And the poor staff is like, we don't know. So, but down at the Greek theater, people were either sitting on the sidewalk or we couldn't sit in the stands because they were doing their sound check. Like, they planned on still carrying on with the show, but people were just kind of standing around in the shade because it was hot. Really hot.
Do you have a degree estimate?
Easily high 90s. Easily high 90s. Very little access to water until the Greek theater opened its gates. We probably sat down there for a solid half hour before we had access to water. Which, fair enough, there was chaos and thousands of people, and that was about it down there. They handled it really well for all the chaos. A lot of rangers came down, a lot of police officers, a lot of fire trucks, keeping everyone kind of corralled, telling them which way to go if they wanted to get picked up or not. So yeah, I don't know what else to.
How about I guess there's children involved, I'm sure. How do they handle it?
The majority of them, fine. Like, the adults stayed pretty calm. So the kids pretty much stayed calm. I think I saw one or two kids that were clearly distressed, but the rest of them, there was one, this was towards like the 3-hour mark of waiting to see, and we knew the fires were dying down, the smoke had stopped, fire trucks were driving away, and these little boys were playing hide and go seek, and this little boy could never make it to 20. He kept counting, and then like at 17, he'd be like, 100, ready or not, here I come. So kids were doing fine. The tourists were the ones that were a little panicked, especially the foreign ones, because they had rental cars and they had flights to catch, and the police officers didn't have answers. So things did get a little chaotic because they were shuttling us back up to the observatory to get our cars, but they couldn't get cars after a certain point, and so people weren't quite sure where that was because they kept saying, this certain road, if you're on this road, we can't get your car. And, you know, out-of-towners were like, we don't know what that road is. So, but the firefighters were great. They were valeting cars. You'd give them your keys, and they'd go down and get your car and drive it back up.
So when you guys came out, you guys saw the fire.
Yep.
What was how did you feel just seeing that fire right next to such a monumental landmark?
That honestly wasn't my first thought. My first thought was my car, because it was right where my car was. And, you know, we're a nation away from my house, and this is the first nice car I have. And then my dear sweet husband, who's not used to forest fires, was like, you wait here, I'll run and get the car, and was about to run into the fire to go get the car. So,
That's very chivalrous.
yeah, I think he didn't realize, like, you don't do that. So I stopped him. I'm glad it was at the observatory because, I mean, they got that fire taken care of in 3.5 hours. Just, at least the time we waited, 4 hours tops, it felt like. So if it had been anywhere else, there's a good chance it would have spread a lot more likely to have hit my car. So I'm a bad person, but my first thought was not for the observatory. My first thought was for my car.
Nice.
So.
Okay, so romantic honeymoon trip to observatory.
Yeah.
Fire starts, evacuation,
Yep.
rush down the hill,
Yep.
Greek theater, hot day, children running around playing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like a complete bust. You finally get shuttled back up to your car. Car's okay with it?
During the day we were terrified because we don't have a lot of savings and we're leaving in 2 weeks. Like, the shuttle drivers were saying some cars were lost, but we didn't know which cars, and the firemen wouldn't tell us which cars. Thank God the car was okay. So
some cars didn't make it out.
yeah, there were a small patch of road. The cars did not make it out, but we didn't know if we were on that patch of road. But they shuttled us. So, like, here's the observatory, and there's this little patch of road, and then the road going down, and this little patch is the one that was bad. So they had to drive us around to get to our car. Thank goodness it was okay, but at that point we were dehydrated and hungry because we skipped lunch, because we were going to do lunch after the show. So we drove through LA traffic and went to Outback Steakhouse for our celebration and ate a lot of red meat and drank a lot of alcohol. So that was our consolation prize.
Alright, so during that, you see your car, you're happy your car made it.
Yes.
So that's a relief. And during I guess on the way to the restaurant, or even at the restaurant, or on the way home, or to your parents' home, what are some of the emotions going through your head then?
Relief. Both him and I just kept repeating, thank God the car's okay, thank God the car's okay. I know it sounds really superficial, but 2 years ago, our really reliable Subaru got completely totaled when a guy rear-ended me. And then we had a 4Runner that was a gas guzzler, and then we got ripped off with a Honda that was a complete junker. So this Camry was like the first good car we've had in a few years. So most of the drive back was, thank God the car's okay, you know, we're gonna be okay. The relief washing over us. So yeah, that was, primary thought was that, and then it was we need to get food and water in us, because we maybe that entire day had 1 bottle's worth of water per person with standing out in the sun, and so yeah, it was hot, and poor Ruben doesn't handle heat like I do, so but we tried to thank the Greek Theater as best we could, you know, for opening up the gates so we could use the restroom and all that stuff. And the police officers the firefighters and the police officers tried their best. And I think it was the Greek Theater that had their shuttles come and shuttle us back up so we didn't have to walk back up.
I've made that walk before. It's not fun.
Especially after being out in the hot sun for several hours, not knowing. So the next morning we slept in and just woke up, that relief of like, okay, you know, I'm thinking all the worst case scenarios, like this is gonna rage and we're gonna have to get picked up and our phone battery's dying, so we're hardly using our phones to make sure we can call people if we need to, and a lot of anxiety.
So what do you take out of this? What do you take home and what do you take? What are the stories you save for the future?
Long story short, our marriage has been rough due to outside influences. Like, we haven't done anything wrong, but there's been a lot of outside third party that's made the first 3 years of our marriage rocky. And so on top of everything else, we're like, well, now we know we can handle a forest fire together. Like, we know we can handle these things.
So it's a marital achievement.
Yeah, it was a marital achievement. Like, all right, maybe our next anniversary won't involve a forest fire.
Don't go to Hawaii.
Yeah. I offered him, I asked, you know, do you want to go back to the observatory? Because there was so much we didn't get to see. And he goes, no, I'm okay. All right. So it'll be good for the two truths and a lie game. To be like, I almost got caught in a forest fire. So that'll be fun. It was an experience. That's the best way. I probably wouldn't laugh and smile if my car had been burned up. That would have ruined everything. I can guarantee you that Observatory is going to have a meeting about emergencies after this, because they handled it so poorly in a comedic kind of way.
Oh, no.
We're in the Planetarium and they're wrapping up the show, which it was a fantastic show, and suddenly the show stops and they turn on the lights and they're like, just a technical difficulty, just floundering through it, so automatically everybody's already on edge. You know, if everybody would just go ahead and exit the Planetarium, and so we get up to walk out and somebody goes, you know, if we could just walk out in a calm and orderly fashion, and so we're all getting a little more panicked, and the observatory's got its fire alarms on, and somebody's out there going, if everybody would just walk a little faster, and so clearly we're all panicking a little bit inside, and then we get out, and I don't know who it was at the observatory, but somebody's going, go to your cars, quick, go get your cars, and so we're all headed to go get the cars, and somebody out in the parking lot's like, don't go to your cars, go down the hill, don't go to your cars. So I guarantee you there is now a meeting like, all right, everyone, if there's a forest fire, you don't do these things.
So earlier you said, I'm thinking it's just different groups. So earlier you said they handled it well. Who were they?
The park rangers, the police officers, the firefighters, the enforcement. The Greek Theater really stepped in. They kind of organized everything. The reps from the Greek Theater were the ones who, to my understanding, ordered the shuttles and had everybody get in line, and so
it's basically great. The observatory staff that needs better training and proper procedures?
I mean, I would say it wasn't like mass chaos or anything, but you could tell something was wrong with the way they handled it. Once again, no mass chaos. We all went out in an orderly fashion, but they...
No Black Friday at the Griffith.
Right. It just, the way they said it, it's a technical difficulty. It's like, okay, so it's not a technical difficulty. And well, let's just walk in a calm and orderly fashion. All right, so...
It sounds very much like they should have said, there's a fire around the premises, we need to evacuate you to a safe place.
You could tell they didn't know what they were supposed to say, so...
Okay. So yeah, that definitely sounds like a training issue for the Griffith.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, there wasn't panic or anything. I don't want to make it sound like it was mass chaos, because they did get us out, had us down the road.
Were you at all surprised that there weren't more people being upset? First that the show was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Second, that they had to move. That everyone was so cooperative. It sounds like everyone was really cooperative.
Oh yeah, everyone was really cooperative. A couple wanted to go, or a few clumps wanted to go get their cars, and the firefighters were like, the fire's right there, you're not going anywhere. That seemed to be the worst of it. I think a lot of it helped that it almost seemed like a California experience. Everybody was taking pictures and snapping it and tweeting it, and I think that helped a lot, that it was a fun experience. And I imagine, and this is just assumptive thinking, but I imagine for a lot of out-of-staters or people from out of the country, they didn't understand. My brain's running through, like, this fire can blaze for hours. This fire, like, I'm tracking the wind. Californian response, everybody else is like, oh, look, the helicopters are dumping water. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's 3 helicopters. How big is this thing? Because I know Ruben wasn't panicking as much as I was. So, but no, the people were really, they walked all polite. Kids weren't panicking.
Who shouted, get your cars?
Some female voice was like, go get your cars, go get your cars.
You couldn't say if it was an employee or just a visitor.
I'm not sure. I know when we got to that top parking lot up at the top, some people did manage to get their cars to drive down the road, because as we were walking down, people were driving down, but the fire never got close to that top lot. I just know a lot of people were trying to go down, and the fire was right there. Like, I stopped Ruben. He was moving forward, and I grabbed him. I was like, no, you're not. Burn the car down.
More than my car.
Exactly. Especially since at that point we didn't know how big it was. We didn't know which way the wind was blowing, or I didn't. I don't think Ruben was thinking about that. So, yeah, so looking back, it was fine, but in the moment, it was just, all I could think was the car's burned down. I'm going to spend my last 2 weeks of my vacation trying to figure out what in the world we're going to do. We don't have money saved up. We still owe money on the car. Rah. But we finished with Outback and the best mudslide I've ever had in my life. So that was the highlight of the evening. We normally budget ourselves when we go to dinner, because single income, and we got to Outback and he asked what the budget was, and I was like, the budget is whatever the bill comes to, like, after what we've been through. So
It's a survival celebration.
yeah. We survived. But no, it was pretty calm. I didn't see any panicking. I wanted to punch a few people because they kept cutting in lines, but I decided everybody's kind of on edge, so I'm not going to start anything with anyone. That's it. It was not the way I wanted to celebrate my 3rd year, but now we have a story, I guess.
But it really sounds amazing. Seeing it from a Southern Californian's point of view, and your description of it being so orderly and working out so well.
It really was, except for that beginning part of the staff getting us out of the observatory, where it was just clear they didn't know what they were supposed to say. like, I'm sure they have procedures for if there's a fire in the observatory, but not around the observatory. But other than that, one of the head firefighters, I assume he was like a head firefighter, when they shuttled us back up, we were coming in waves because there were shuttles of people, so he's trying to keep the people there under control while the new shuttle's coming up. He had to repeat instructions for them, and people obviously want to get close to what's left of the fire to take pictures, and he's like trying to keep them back, and nobody's listening. And I tried to tell him, like, you're doing a great job. He's like, right. I'm like, no, really, you are, with what you're dealing with. But no, the Rangers and the firefighters and the Greek theater handled it really well. And I don't know who drove the water up in the coolers, but we were down there maybe 20-30 minutes, and 2 big coolers of ice water with cups was driven up to us. It's a lot better now that it's over. At the time, all I could think is my car's gone, and what am I gonna do? They're gonna have to tow it, and that's gonna cost money, and yeah.
Any more questions?
I think we've got a podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this audio installment. Spoken narration written by Julie Cosgrove and narrated by Justin Kenward. Audio provided by Justin Kenward. Photographs were provided by Kielyanne Love and can be found at the USEDmedia website. For more first-hand accounts on life-altering events, please visit usedmedia.org.